Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in Modern. Today we're looking at something spicy. That's a spicy meatball. Calibrated Blast is a small C combo deck that uses the namesake card to deal lethal damage. Blast is a 3-mana sorcery that reveals cards from the top of your deck until you find a non-land card and then deals damage equal to that card's mana value. Ideally, you'll reveal a high mana value card like Emrakul, Shadow of Mortality, or a Tocton Worm, but there is a chance to hit a low value card like another Calibrated Blast. So this is a meme deck, right? Well, no? But it's certainly not tier 1. I have to correct something I said in the Amulet Titan video, which is that it played the most lands of any modern deck, because Calibrated Blast cleanly dethrones that position by running 40 lands. Calibrated Blast has a unique deck building challenge similar to Cascade decks in that you can't afford to play cheap spells. But whereas Cascade decks get around that restriction with cards like Fire and Ice and Brazen Borrower, Calibrated Blast requires much higher mana values. And because the deck requires exclusively high mana value cards, it almost can't interact at all before turn 3 and has limited sideboard options. Most distressingly, there's no way to ensure you actually draw Calibrated Blast. There's only a 40% chance to have one in your opening hand, although the probability increases to 54% if you include Throes of Chaos. Therefore, you need to aggressively mulligan to find Blast. And you may have noticed something else. The deck is trying to deal lethal damage with Blast, but the highest mana value cards currently in the game cost 15, not 20. This means in order to win the game, you need to find another way to eke out the remaining damage. This can be helped along by decks that hurt themselves with fetch and shock lands, though that's not a guarantee, and the moment your opponent realizes what you're doing, they'll be more careful with their life total. Sunscorched Desert, Ramen Up Ruins, and attacking with Mishra's Factory can all assist. However, in all likelihood, you'll need to cast a second Blast or flashback the first one. The deck's land base is where it may be able to interact given the channel lands from Kamigawa of Boseiju, Otawara, and Sokenzan. It can also block with Mishra's Factory. Scion of Draco and Shadow of Mortality are big mana cards that can also maybe be cast earlier in the game due to their cost reduction abilities, though I doubt it. The idea of these cards is on the right track though. Split cards are a good way to get around the deck building restrictions since their mana value is equal to the sum of both halves. Here are a number of other cards I'd look to test out. Bedeck Bedazzle, Dusk to Dawn, or Rags to Riches since they can deal with small creatures. Bringers of the Black, Blue, and Green Dawn, particularly the black one since it tutors for Blast. Commit to Memory. Connive Concoct, since you can potentially mill and reanimate an Emrakul. Fast and Furious, Greater Gargadon, Hit and Run, and Titanoth Rex. How to sideboard. The first cards to go should be anything that isn't relevant in a given matchup. The smallest of the big mana cards such as Scion of Draco, and redundant or irrelevant lands like extra copies of the channel lands. OG Boseiju forces Calibrated Blast through counterspells. Nephalia Academy prevents you from permanently losing Calibrated Blast to discard spells. Consigned to Oblivion deals with problematic permanents such as Leyline of Sanctity. And Crime and Punishment handles wider spread permanents and is good against aggressive decks like Hammer Time and Prowess. How to beat it. Other than losing to itself, the deck is particularly weak to counterspells and hand disruption like Thoughtseize. It can easily lose to anything that consistently wins by turn 3 or 4, including aggro decks, combo decks, Tron, etc. It's good against decks that rely on creature removal or which have few answers to Calibrated Blast. Slower mid-range decks like Ponza come to mind. Mill is the best matchup by far, basically being a free win. Calibrated Blast laughs at the deck as you can just discard or mill over any of your 4 Emrakuls. Tips and tricks. Calibrated Blast can target anything, not just players. This is relevant if you need to deal with a problematic permanent such as a lethal Inkmoth Nexus or Karn the Great Creator. Calibrated Blast's damage is created by an ability that triggers after you reveal the card. This means you don't have to choose your target until you see which card is revealed. You may want to target something besides your opponent if you reveal a low value card such as another Blast. Ramen Up Ruins can sacrifice any desert, not just itself. See Sunscorched Desert. This deck meets the companion requirements for Karuga. However, Karuga offers very little added benefit, gives away what deck it is in Game 1, and takes a sideboard slot that could be better spent on something else. Mishra's Factory can block, then target itself before damage to become a 3/3. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Calibrated Blast. I want to thank my fellow players in the Magic community for whom sharing their experiences helps make these guides possible. You can find additional resources, such as an up-to-date deck list, in the description. If you think I left out anything important or got something wrong, please leave your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see what deck we look at next time.